This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 35, How to Handle Feedback. Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you attract and retain business through the power of quality content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is September 5th, 2013. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for episode 35 of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, we are live on iTunes and on Stitcher, so if you are listening to this episode on the blog, you can click on over and subscribe. That means you'll get new episodes automatically delivered to your computer or your smartphone or your listening device of choice. And if you use another app for your podcast listening pleasure, we also have an RSS feed, and I will provide that link in the blog post. Last week, we answered a listener question about how to fit long-form content projects into the mix, especially when you're already plenty busy with your blog, your e-newsletter, your social media, and your other day-to-day activities. So if you happen to miss that episode, feel free to click on over to iTunes or Stitcher or to the RSS feed and get all caught up. That brings me to today's topic. Today, I want to talk about how to deal with feedback from your audience. Like it or not, when you start engaging in content marketing, you become a publisher. And publishers have audiences, and those audiences have opinions that they may decide to share with you in the form of feedback. And that could be comments on your blog, comments on your Facebook page, emails that you receive, many different forms. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the different kinds of feedback and share some thoughts about how to deal with each type. And I want to preface this by saying that as content marketers, we always need to be encouraging feedback. Always make your audience feel comfortable and welcome to share their thoughts with you on whatever content you put out there, whether it's a simple blog post or an e-book or something larger scale. Always make sure that people feel comfortable sharing their feedback with you, because feedback is how we get better at serving our audiences, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a bit. Okay, so on to the different types of content. I've identified 4 main categories. There are probably more, or you could shift them around a little bit differently, but for the purposes of this podcast, I've picked out 4, and we will go through them one by one. So I'm going to start at the bottom and get the smarmy stuff out of the way first. First, I want to talk about something that really doesn't even qualify as feedback, but I do want to talk about it a little bit, and that is spam. So, and I mention this because if you are brand new to blogging, or if you're new to social media, you may not be aware that people will spam your publishing sites just the same way that they send you email spam. So someone will leave a comment on your blog post or a post on your Facebook page, and all it is a link to a page that's trying to sell something. I know on Facebook there's a weight loss spammer who goes around to different pages and posts this link to a weight loss page or website. I once got spam comments on my blog linking to a watch retailer, even though my blog has nothing to do with watches. So they're really kind of random, and it's just people trying to sell something. Now, that being said, not every comment that has a link is considered spam. If I publish a blog post and someone publishes a comment that says, gives some feedback on that post and says, oh, here's an app that I like to use for this, to deal with this issue, or here's a link to another blog that I subscribe to. That's absolutely fine in my book, because it's just part of the conversation, and it adds to what they were contributing as part of their comment. But no, just slapping a link up there, hoping that people will click on it, I just delete those because it's spam. It has no value. I just get rid of it. So that's the bottom level. The second level up from there are people but people who are generally called trolls. And if you've been on the web a while, if you've posted on forums, or if you've seen been on a lot of interactive websites, you've seen a lot of trolls. And trolls are basically people who are looking to pick a fight. They are putting comments out there. There's usually some kind of personal attack in there that has nothing to do with the content, and they're just trying to get a rise out of you, and they're trying to start something, and really have nothing concrete to contribute to the conversation at all. And for an example, I want to talk about Brene Brown. She is a researcher. She's a very popular author and speaker, and she is a psychology expert or PhD, and she speaks on the topic of shame. Well, a couple of years ago, Brene Brown did a TEDx talk from TEDx Houston, and the video went viral, and she got millions and millions of views. Well, the comments on the YouTube link, not on the TEDx website, but on the YouTube, she was getting comments that said things like, oh, if I looked like you do, I'd be preaching self-acceptance as well, or just snarky, stupid little comments like that. And that's what trolls do. They put those comments out there, and by and large, they're just not even worthy of a response. You know, you could get in there and say, okay, this is uncalled for, I don't think you understand what I was trying to say, whatever it is, but that's their objective. They want to get a rise out of you, and they want to get that reaction. So now whether you leave those comments up or delete them is up to you, but I would say step away from trying to engage these people or trying to convince them otherwise, because they're just looking for a fight. Okay, so those are the bottom feeders. Glad we got rid of those right away. The next level I want to talk about is implicit feedback. And that I call it implicit feedback when someone either likes a post or shares a post or retweets something or links to your blog. So they're not explicitly saying anywhere, yes, I like this content, but obviously if they've shared it, they imply that they like what they've read or watched or listened to, whatever it is. And for this type of feedback, I think it's critically important to always send a thank you. If someone retweets a tweet of mine, I send a quick tweet thanking them. If someone links to me from a blog post, I'll either leave a comment in their blog post saying thank you, or maybe I'll tweet a link with a thank you in that. And to me, that's just a common courtesy. Of all the billions and billions of pieces of content out there, this person chose to share mine, and I like to express gratitude because I am grateful. I am very happy that they chose to share it. And then, of course, when you show gratitude for things, they tend to happen, whether you want to call that karma or the secret or the spirit of community or whatever it is. So I always like to try to express gratitude for people sharing and linking to my content. And the top level I want to talk about is explicit feedback. So this is feedback in which someone takes the time to write out and send you their thoughts about your content. And this could be a comment on a particular blog post. It could be a comment on a social media post. It could be a post on your Facebook page or an individual tweet. It could be email feedback. It can take many different forms. So just a word about what people say when they provide this feedback. I know I'm stating the obvious here, but I think it bears mentioning. When you start creating content and putting it out there, not everyone is going to love everything you do. There's some of those comments may express dislike for what you said, or disagreement with what you said, or just not liking something that you've done. And those comments, sometimes they may sting a little bit, even if they're delivered kindly and courteously. And I think the reason is we put a lot of time and effort into our content, but since it's a creative process, I know for me at least, I put a little bit of myself into everything that I put out there. So, if someone wants to criticize, the way I load the dishwasher, I couldn't care less. But if someone criticizes a piece of content that I have created from my little creative soul, that sometimes can be a little bit harder to swallow. But here's the way that I try to look at it. If the person read or saw or heard something that I put out there that they didn't like, they had one of two options. Either they could click away and turn their attention to one of the billions of other pieces of content out there on the web, or they could share their thoughts with me. And given the choice between those two options, I will take the latter anytime. I would rather hear that feedback rather than the person just clicking away and never returning, because that explicit feedback is incredibly valuable information that I will never get from the folks who just click away. So really, any explicit feedback that I receive, whether it's positive or negative, I always try to acknowledge and thank the person for sharing their thoughts, even if I don't agree, because I want that person to come back and I want them to keep engaging with my content in the future. Now, if that person expresses a disagreement, it's up to you whether you want to engage them and kind of start a back and forth. I choose not to. I believe my content has expressed my point of view, their feedback has expressed their point of view, and I think we're done. And I subscribe to the Dale Carnegie principle of the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. But hey, if you want to engage and start a conversation and start a back and forth, it depends on the nature of the post and the nature of the comment, absolutely, go ahead. So those are just some initial thoughts that I had on feedback. I probably missed some scenarios to deal with, and if there's anything I missed or if there's anything that you would like to add to the conversation, please hit me up and I will give that contact information at the end of the podcast. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. For today's tip, I want to talk about YouTube, and specifically I want to talk about a feature of YouTube that you might not have heard of. So, not all of your YouTube videos have to be open to the public at large. There are actually 3 different privacy settings that you can attach to any given piece of YouTube content, and those are public, unlisted, and private. So a public video is just out there. It will show up in search results. It will show up on your channel when people go to your homepage on YouTube. It's just out there for anyone to see. Now, an unlisted video means only people who have the link to that video can view it. So someone who received that link via email or even via social media, any place you chose to share that link, they're the only ones who can see it. So those videos will not come up in search results and they will not show on your channel. And then the third privacy setting is private, which means not only does it not show up in search results and not show up on your channel, but only people whose email addresses you specify can view that video. And if you click that privacy setting, YouTube will ask for the email addresses of the people who want to see that video, or you want to see that video. And this can be incredibly useful because what you can do is create exclusive video content that you don't want to make available to the general public. For example, if you want to create, let's say, a special video series that's exclusive for people who receive your e-newsletter, well, that's a definite perk for subscribing to your e-newsletter. You can create that video just any way you want to create it, upload it to YouTube, designate it as unlisted, and then include that link in your e-newsletter. So that's one way you could use those settings. Another thing you could do is if you want to use the private setting, and I mean, if you want to record a birthday greeting to someone and put that video up there, set it as private and send them the link, then they will be able to access it, and no one else will be able to see that video. So there are all kinds of options that are available by using those YouTube settings. Now, that being said, I trust YouTube to do what they say, to keep private things private, but I would not trust it with anything super sensitive or any trade secrets or any, let's say, any demos that you don't want anyone else to. I wouldn't trust it with anything super, super confidential because you just never know when a glitch is going to happen. But in general, I trust those settings. If it's unlisted, it's not going to show up. If it's private, it will only be available to people who you specify. So try those settings, play with them a little bit, try creating some exclusive content and see how it goes, and let me know how that works out for you. Okay, campers, that is it for me this week. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review. I would so appreciate that. For more information about content marketing, you're welcome to visit our blog at resonancecontent.com/blog, where you'll also find links to our pages on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social networks. If you'd like to email me a question to cover in a tip of the week or possibly in a podcast spotlight, you can contact me anytime at rachel@resonancecontent.com. Also, if you'd like for me to come speak about content marketing to your business or your organization, you can find information about my most current talk at contentmarketingspeaker.net. As always, I like to leave you with a quote, and with all the talk about Steve Ballmer being out at Microsoft, I decided to go ahead and revisit my Bill Gates quote bank, and I actually found one that fits perfectly with today's theme. Bill Gates once said, "Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning." So let's keep that in mind as we go through our feedback. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing, and we will see you again next week. Take care.